This is AllReasonNoLogic's road to OS 25. Join us as Tom battles to double his OS starting at 12. Hit subscribe and leave your comments and tips. To the battlefield commanders.
Hello and welcome everybody. We're back where it all began 120 odd days ago to see whether we've made any improvements across our journey so far. So I'm back playing core on the same map that I started on, and feels like a very long time ago at this stage.
That's because it was a long time ago. It was 120 days. Jeez, make your journey take a long time. I mean, come on. You only had to raise your OS like, what, 12 points? You can do that in a week.
Down at 12 or so at the beginning of this. So it's been an interesting journey so far.
It has been, and I actually think that it's been the last few games that have made an absolutely massive difference to your OS. We've seen a real uptick in what you've been doing since I believe it was your map on Tar something or other.
Yes, that was the one with the vehicles, wasn't it?
Yes, it was the one where you ended up having to take on an extra player's worth of worth of eco.
We rolled down from the top.
Yeah, that was a particularly enjoyable one. But jumping into this one, Delta Siege Dry, one of my all-time favorite maps because it's such an interesting playstyle. You've got the big open front in the bottom half of the map, and then you've got the winding cliffs in the top half of the map. So you get this real ebb and flow of a map.
Halves.
Yes. But if another half wins and starts spilling across, it's absolutely devastating. Suddenly these ramps, which you basically have to leave undefended if you want to try and claim territory, can become entry points, which you cannot allow to happen.
Yeah, we saw that in the last game that I had on here, where I managed to get up some of those ramps and get out from, rather than winning the bottom, putting a whole bunch of pressure on the top and popping some of those bases.
So immediately I'm seeing something pretty scary happening for your team. You've got the Lilac player that's heading up much earlier than your equivalent player, and is going to get pole position. Also is coming with units compared to your player who is not. However, you're coming out with some grunts, which are going to be great for cleaning up the ticks that are trying to make their way across the map. So if this player was a little more experienced, I'd expect to see them try to push forward and get position with that second mechs. The extra +2 metal over time makes a pretty big difference, but doesn't look like that early advantage of walking up is going to lead to anything. Good surround on that mace. Good catch.
Yeah, I figured I was unlikely to really get much of a push in, but I figured whilst I've got the units here, I'll see if there's anything, because if you can get through in the first instance, you'll probably make it. But if you leave it like I'm doing now and just letting them sit there, then
the funny thing is, if you had these on longer move commands, you actually could have gotten all the way into the back lines. There's nothing coming out for either team back there, so you would have had a nice open run. But that is hindsight, and that is the replay advantage that you get. You've got no idea what's actually coming, but you have managed to trade reasonably efficiently.
There is a pounder drop up north. That's interesting play.
So this is one of my favorite things about these lobbies in that middle sort of OS ranking. You have to start learning to be prepared for really weird things, because this is if anyone calls this standard play, I'ma fight you. This is not standard play.
No, not at all.
But a really cool idea, to be honest. If you're ever up against this one, my recommendation, Com-D gun. You can get both the Hercules and the Pounder during the pickup process if you can get anywhere close. Thankfully, it does look like Money Boss is in a half-decent position to react. The question is, will the Pounder get the wind before Money Boss gets the Pounder? Unfortunately, those shots going onto the com and not the wind, so we're not going to get any chains right there, and a good D-gun out of the green commander. So only a little bit of damage done. That 1 pounder getting 2 mexes and 2 wins. So pretty interesting. Whether that's worth it or not, it will come down to if there is air that can make a change throughout this battle.
While that's going on, I've essentially just plugged this middle down the bottom here.
And this will be a good test to see how your micro has evolved over time. Right now, you've got a group of what I would consider to be brawler units and a group of skirmisher units. And the question is, will you be able to keep the skirmishers firing more than not, and then also intercept with the grunts if anything tries to take them out? You've got a good opportunity here with your allies' thugs pushing up. See if you can get that support on, and you've caught the movement, and you're starting to get in position to make a lot of that work.
Tom, do you use hotkeys for your units?
Yes, I've normally got things like my grunts on 1, aggravators and things on 2. That sort of thing.
Yeah, hot tip for a lot of players, like it is worth going into a skirmish game and building one of every unit, and then assigning them with the alt control grouping keys. You select all your grunts, your pawns on 1 number, your thugs, your maces on another number. Same with your tanks. Just always like Prey classified it. Your brawl units as a number, your range units as a number. So I have my aggravators and whistlers in the same group. Depending if I go vehicles or bots, I can always just select the same number and know that it's my ranged units. It really helps with that microing, keeping your brawlers in front of your long range units when you need to.
Very, very much so, and it does transfer between games, which is why you can do it in a skirmish.
Oh, is this going to be a comm snipe? I think it is, but I think we might also see the thugs go down. No, nicely microed out of Papa Bedak.
Very nice right there, and an early comm
straight away.
Exactly. Actually getting some of the repairs on these thugs to make sure that they win the engagement, allowing for the... Now he's about to go for the reclaim.
One thing I'll do different here is drop a LLT behind him, so right here on the cross. Drop an LLT where your commander's blocking it from being degunned, and then it'll keep that area secure enough that you can still reclaim, and another commander can't get close enough to... well, they could probably degun it. That would have been the best move out of Jack, or best play is to degun that, but it's been sucked up too late. And that's 1,200 metal in the bank for the red team, roughly.
And this is one of the big advantages that your lane currently has. Both you and Papa Pete are working together, as compared to the Lilac player, who while they are being supported by Bestbot and Old Jack, they weren't able to bring all of the units to bear at the same time. The units have just been trickling in and dying to these thugs, not to mention the repair game has been on point. So the continuation of your siege, as well as some of your grunts for tanking and those thugs doing a good amount of damage, is starting to really whittle this lane back. Not to mention you've got the aggravator back up now, so you've got a fallback position that will do a lot of damage to T1.
I gotta say, what's really important here is you've got Tank Tom, Harpy, and Papa playing against the front line, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 blue team players that have committed to the front line. So you're taking up the APM of 4 players with just 3, allowing your highest OS player, Blackbird, to eco up in the corner there. So essentially you've got 2 players ecoing or teching whilst you're occupying the front line. And what you're really doing, Tom, is you're going up and down. Where are your units needed the most? You've gone
and
north
that was
to
my
take
plan
on
for
purple.
this game, was to be that swing middle player and basically end up wherever I needed to be, or wherever I could be the most useful.
T1 wall's not quite high enough on flat ground to stop these lashes.
Interestingly, you're currently sitting fractionally behind your equivalent player on the other team as far as your wind with 35 to 50, but the medal income is only 200 apart at the moment. So your combiing on the front line and actually winning those engagements is doing you a good ticket and making up for any loss in eco in the background. And your eco is scaling continuously, though I have seen a slight mistake in the base. I don't think that you want two rows of build turrets. I think those may possibly have meant to be converters or wind.
Yeah, they were definitely meant to be wind. And We'll come back to those a bit later on. Because I remember going, why am I getting, like, why is my eco so low? What's going on? And then looking back and having more than a couple sitting back there.
This is the thing, the one of the things that has changed between the start of this series and the end of it, that might have been a fatal mistake for you. But even though it's going to set you a little bit behind, you've got the chops to recover these days. You also got much better decision making too. Like right now, you're assisting the pink player who's had to be fighting, who's been continuously fighting on this front line and having to deal with the lashes. You're getting your own range support in to try and help even the odds, and you've pushed back his front line, and you're starting to get damage onto those whistlers, which is going to keep allowing that comp to stay alive for just that little bit longer. Keep this lane up and running, and now the blue player is having to pull down to deal with you, leaving your yellow player up to, your cream player, to deal with things as needed. Looking for a little run by or a little catch on your aggravators. Not quite skirmishing them back quickly enough, but you're microing the comm to get in position to try and catch them. So that's not a bad call at all. Only a handful of those of your aggravators going down. And you want to keep those alive because they're quite high shovs, and getting the repair on is definitely a good ticket.
I have had a couple of grave robbers that have been in the mix, kind of going between giving them a repair command and then eating when it was available.
So let's just quickly jump to the top part of the map right now. Your team is doing quite well at the moment. Two players inside or almost inside the enemy bases. One of the things that you have to recognize when you're playing a game like this is what this means for your team. This means that playing in a way which will allow you to keep holding this front and keep things reasonably equal is perfectly acceptable, because your team is going to gain their advantage from the top half of the map. So as long as you don't lose in the bottom, they're the decisions you want to make in this situation. And you can see with the Whistler balls starting to build up, as well as the positioning starting to change, the blue team is doing a little bit better right now in this bottom half of the map, but mostly because they are being supplied by, again, 4 players are working towards this front line instead of the 3. So if you can hold on till red gets online, they've just got their T2 up. Hopefully they distribute that T2. It looks like they have, to everyone. You're going to be able to come back and sweep without any real consequences.
You can see that I've picked up those build towers after I built 8.
That's so many build towers.
Thankfully, you can reclaim them for metal. I remember that I ate a few of them to get this lab up.
The crazy thing is that even with that, and even with an extra player fighting on the front with you, against you, you've still managed to hold this at bay, which is essentially the win condition for this map. The top half of the map is going to keep pushing, and so the middle of the map is where you have to make those calls, and you have to put the eco in. So even with that restricted eco, you're still managing to get the job that you need to done.
Yeah, so with this one, because I'd been able to see that the top lane were moving up nicely, we knew that we were basically holding down here. And as long as we could do that, then we should be able to hold out here long enough that that's going to roll through the top, particularly once those couple of comms go down.
Now, it wouldn't be an AllReasonNoLogic video without us criticising a little bit. When you did do this T2 lab, you had the aggravators building the whole time. You can see the last one walking in there, and that really could have been metal that was converted into the T2 lab, as well as reclaiming the T1 lab itself.
Whilst, yes, if you look at the front line, there's not a whole lot there. So having units still replenishing that was
agree with your point,
priority.
But it would be more efficient to build those aggravators, get that many out, pause your T2 lab, get them out, and then resume the T2 lab construction. You'd end up in the same result a lot faster.
Just had an attempted air raid on the front. Nothing to come of it, though. The build turrets are up. Oh, actually, maybe that's weakened the comm enough for these units to get... No, it doesn't look like it. Those build turrets does look like it is going to survive. This comm has been dancing on low health the entire match, but it is being gunned for. And oh no! Oh, oh no! Moving it forward into the units coming around the map. Oh, that's a hefty loss for your team. With all those whistles on the front line, you're going to desperately need these Sheldons as well as something to keep them somewhat safe, which you've got coming up. That's the Augur
top of the
map, Deceiver.
When the top of the map's looking successful like it currently is, you don't want to be making mistakes like that, because that is a condition that could turn the tide of the battle. Losing all those units. Luckily, Tom, you're there to move down.
Yeah, I've managed to get the timing of the T2 right, in that just as that's fallen and could have been catastrophic if it was still T1, we've now got some additional firepower coming through to help assist with this. And whilst we're going to lose this comm and all of its metal, we do have enough units here now that we can largely hold off any future aggression coming through here. I definitely don't have the right composition to be stopping or face tanking.
Is there a radar around here anywhere?
It is perfectly okay to use those aggravators as a meat shield to keep the Sheldons alive. Yes, they're not the best for the job, but you use what you have. And it does look like you might be getting a comm snipe right here, potentially. Oh, 3%. Oh. That was close. That was close. Good catch by the purple player. And now you're up against something which is a really hard thing to fight, and I don't think it's something you've had to deal with all too much in this in your road so far. And that is a Starlight. And a Starlight hidden by an Umbra and a Prophet with some Whistlers in front of it is actually a very scary proposition. At the moment, I can see exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to make this a ranged fight, which is what you would normally do with Sheldons. But the reality is that this Starlight outranges you sort of like a sniper does, and it's just going to start taking damage and taking damage and taking damage. The one opportunity you had to really shut it down was while you still had those aggravators alive. The solution with what you did have enough here to beat it. What you needed was vision, and what you needed was the units to be able to tank it. And now that you're missing those, it's going to be a very hard thing to attack. However, manual fire is one of the advantages humans do get over AI. Identifying where those beams are coming from and getting the snipe on it is excellent, but a lot of damage has been done at this point. In fact, definitely more than its mineral cost has been expunged. And now there's a second one. You're just going to be in this position over and over and over again as you try and find that balance. So this is where the loss of the T1 lab is quite devastating, because every single shot is going to take a large amount of
devastating is Tom's 2,500 metal in the bank. Lucky it's going into a lab, just catching it before overflowing. You do have the fusion up.
Good thing I got all that build power sitting in the base.
Oh dear. Oh dear. No.
And that's something that I didn't necessarily do back at the start of this. You can see that I'd eaten my lab to get my fusion up, to then get my lab back up again.
And that makes a world of difference. But what isn't going to make a world of difference is your unit choice right now.
Yeah, the Sheldon's going to hold, the ball's going to hold, and with the T1 still coming out of this player, the purple player on the bottom lane, there still is quite the chance that you could lose down here. With you coming online with T2, no, but you're going into a converter, you're going into 2, you probably only need 1. So yes, 2 to 1 fusion to converter is the right ratio, but not when you know you're going to be building units. You only need the 1.
Look, this could be a hangover from playing too much King of the Hill as well.
That is definitely the game mode we play a little bit more of than anything else. And in that one, your builds are much more cemented than in multiplayer. But again, this is the sort of thing, these are the sort of things that need to be cleaned up during the OS 25 to OS 30 journey. Going to OS 25, you can actually make a lot of these mistakes, provided that you have decent unit combos for what you're trying to achieve, provided that you do manage to scale that eco by eating the labs and getting yourself, and then building the fusion, And as long as you have decent frontline control, that's the sort of thing that's going to get you to OS 25. And while the game's sort of in that stagnant mode, Twig, what do you reckon is the biggest difference between an OS 17 and an OS 25 player?
They're better at the game.
Thanks, Twig. So since Twig is completely and utterly useless, Tank Tom, what skills have you picked up so far in this that have helped you go from a low OS to a higher OS? What are the things that are very achievable that won't necessarily get you to 30, but will get you out of that slump?
One of the big things is basically being aware of what some of your breakpoints are. So when do you go T2? Making plans for what am I going to be like, what am I doing now, and what am I looking to do in like 30 seconds to a minute, that sort of stuff. So things like, the first 30 seconds of a game is going to be pretty standard. Depending on the map, you might have someone try and rush you, so things like making sure you've got a unit or two in your base or an LLT to deal with something that comes in.
I will jump in and say the one thing that really stood out watching your entire journey, Tom, was, and that you really did improve on most games, was the macro in the background. And that is probably my biggest answer for the difference between an OS 17 and an OS 25. That is the ability to correctly scale while still microing your units. And you're great at microing units. Your scaling has improved an insane amount. We got a Cerberus up.
20 minutes I've been busy on the front line, and there's 2 fusions up this game.
Yeah.
Whereas back at the start, I would have been potentially still at T1 and struggling against a T2 front line.
Well, this is actually quite an interesting comparison. The pink player is doing things you used to do at the beginning of your games. They've still got their T1 lab, they've built the T2 lab, they're building a fusion off of the T2 lab, they don't have the conversion to match their wind production. The only thing that they're not doing, actually they are doing it right now, they're building something at the same time as they're building their T2 fusion, and you can see the massive difference between what you're doing and what they're doing. Both players have done a great job on the front line, both players have traded reasonably efficiently, but this level of play is going to completely stall out, and you can see that in the OS. At 9 OS, this player is not a linchpin for the team, and is not doing their eighth of the game, as compared to what you've been doing, which is similarly working on that front line, but also getting that back line at scaling going. You see it in a similar way across the map as well, where you have.
I was actually looking at the other pink. I know what you're talking about now.
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have said light pink. Where you've got the purple player, they're stuck on wind, and they're trying to get their fusion now, but they're stalling on metal because they've built their advanced energy instead of regular converters, and they're building it at the same time. They haven't eaten their lab, and these are some of the big things that make an absolutely huge difference. And even though, and one of the things to note, even though the purple player isn't making the best calls, they're still slightly better than the pinks, and that's reflected by their OS 20 versus the OS 9.
One thing that's probably worth mentioning at this point, people are potentially wondering what is a good time to go for T2. If you've got a reasonable number of units on the front line that can hold for, say, 30 seconds or so fairly comfortably, or you've been skirmishing with them without losing things, if you've got 400 to 500 energy and you're producing 30 metal a second, that's a really good time to be able to look at making that transition. And if you've got space as well where you can pull your back line or pull your front line back if needed to buy yourself a bit of time to get the lab finished, the units coming and moving forward, that's a really good time to try and make that transition. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I found, is being able to make sure that you basically hitting T2 at about the right point, so that you've got T2 units when they have T2 units sitting in the front. Ideally, you do it a little bit before and you can push them back really hard. But at least if you can have T2 coming up at about the right time to be able to match them, then you're not going to get absolutely crushed as it starts rolling through.
Here comes
I think that's
Fred
a really
online.
good point, and I reckon that that's going to be something that we'll focus on. As I alluded to before, an OS 25 to OS 30 journey, focusing on things like specific unit counters, strategies that involve more than just yourself, exact, like, really good timings, or setting yourself up to have good timings for going into T2. That's the sort of thing that's going to make a difference for that OS 30 journey. And speaking of OS 30 journeys, Tank Tom, have you just achieved OS 25?
We have. We've made it to the end of the road to 25 for myself.
It
Nicely done,
definitely
Tom.
wasn't the most exciting of matches for Tank Tom. I still reckon that that one is the one on Tar Pits, but the solid play and the holds, and in particular the recovery from building 8 build turrets and not falling super far behind, is a absolutely massive deal and a testament to how far you've come. This lane was essentially not going to break with you there, and that allowed for the rest of the map to do the thing that it needed to do. And hopefully over the course of the OS 25 to OS 30, you'll go from being able to make these solid defensive plays to being able to sneak through those attacks at the same time and build the sort of unit combinations like the blue player did on the enemy team that really efficiently push back things like your Sheldon push.
And I think for myself, that's probably the next stage, is working out what those unit compositions are and making the right decisions with those, rather than just making sure you've got something decent with a reasonable eco and being in about the right spot.
And so this is a good time to announce it. Starting after a short hiatus, we may put in some slightly different videos, but we'll try to get the next season up and running ASAP. We're going to be launching an OS 25 to 30 journey, and it's not going to be for Tank Tom. It's not going to be for me. It's going to be for all 3 of us as we attempt to make our way to that coveted OS 30 position, and we try to take our spots in top 50 in Australia.
I look forward to it. It's been a while since I've played PvP, and I know you guys have been
It's been a
giving
long
me a
time
bit of
since
shit.
we've played games together.
That's what's really
well.
I'm looking forward to.
We've all needed to get to a similar point together so that we could start trying to push up into those higher ranks. I'm going to be super rusty. Tank Tom's not going to be. Twig is going to be his regular twigging self. And hopefully you enjoy the ride with us. I hope that you've all enjoyed the ride with Tank Tom. It's been very interesting to watch him grow. It's been very good to be giving him the lessons. I know that I think that I've been given a slightly gentler guiding hand versus Twig's rough and shouting and general evilness. And hopefully that's going to be the same story going to that OS 30.
Hopefully we still love each other at the end of it.
We'll put up with you anyway.
Yeah, we didn't like you at the
shout-out to-
get-go, so it doesn't change
Shout out to
anything
everyone
now.
that's been in the comments for each of the videos. It's been great as well having you all come along for the journey.
Do right,
I'm
and
sure
Tom
you'll hang around a
really
bit longer.
Tom really read them as Pratis did in this previous season, and yeah, Tom really adopted some of your comments as well. So in the road to OS 30, I mean, give us those comments. We read them all, and we'll respond to them where we can, and we'll try the tactics you suggest. We will listen to any advice you have on how we scale or how we micro our units, etc. Be critical, be kind, whatever you like.
Also, a massive shout out and thank you to everyone in the Discord, in the AllReasonNoLogic Discord community. We've had many people talk about the games during our Wednesday nights, as well as comment on them after they go up directly to us, and that really does make a big difference. The community that we're growing is absolutely fantastic because it's that nice. It has a nice mix of competitive and non-competitive players all playing together for the sheer enjoyment of the game. So we appreciate each and every one of you that has contributed to this journey.
On that note, we will see you next time.
See you guys.